Hey, friends. Welcome to episode 8 of the Nope Coach podcast. I'm your host, Suzanne Kohlberg, and today's topic is, well, that was suboptimal. So often in our lives, things don't go according to plan. And when that happens, we can rage, we can just not cope, we can numb out with food or shopping or Candy Crush or whatever your jam is, alcohol, or we could just label it as, well, that was suboptimal and move on with our day. And I find it sounds so simple, but it takes so much charge out of the situation. So yesterday, my daughter Xanthi, she likes these lip scrubs that you can buy from Lush. And we were at a local shopping center and they had a pop-up Lush stall in the middle of the shopping center because Mother's Day is coming up. And she was looking at the different lip scrubs. And I have noticed I've had like dry hair lately. So they had all these different hair treatments. And I was like, oh, I wonder which one to use because I don't know a whole lot about these type of things. So I picked up one that says Tester. And I didn't look closely at it, obviously. So I tilted it to read the directions to work out, is this the thing that I need? Not realizing that there was no lid on this tester. So half the product ends up all over the floor. And I'm like, well, that was suboptimal. And then after spilling half the tester, I thought, well, I better buy a product after this. So there was the hair stuff. And then when we got home, that morning, I had felt like Coke. You can judge me all you like. I can take it. I know, Coke, soft drink, pop, soda, whatever you call it. I know it's not good for you. I know all these things. So what I do is I buy a slab and I keep it in the pantry. And then when I feel like a can, I put it in the fridge. Because if I keep it in the fridge, I'll just drink it all the time. So by keeping it in the pantry, I have to commit to, actually, I want a can today. So I put it in the fridge to get cold. So I'd put it in the fridge before we went out to Lux. I get home and I open the fridge and it's not there. I was like, oh, I must have drunk it. So went about, my merry way, played Monopoly with the kids, trounced them. I take no prisoners with Monopoly. And then later that night, I was like, oh, I really feel like something sweet. So I go to the freezer to look for the ice cream that I know that we don't have, but you never know, like past Suze may have bought me a treat. So I open the freezer on the hunt for this ice cream and I find the can of Coke from earlier has exploded. So I must have been absent-minded and put it in the freezer instead of the fridge. So when I went back to look for it, I thought, I must have drunk it. I hadn't. And yeah, Coke, unopened can of soft drink, pop, soda in the freezer will explode if you leave it there. So it is everywhere, all up the walls, all over the ice cube trays or whatever. And I'm just standing there and I'm like, well, that was suboptimal. And then both kids come running and they're like, what have you done? So whenever you hear me say that, some shit has invariably hit the fan. So trying to clean frozen Coke out of a freezer, do not recommend. But it takes so much charge out of the situation. Now, these ones, spilling a tester of hair treatment, exploding a can of Coke, they're not big things by any means. But there's been times that this statement has helped in much bigger situations. So once we were moving interstate, the very first time we left Tasmania, 3 days before we were due to move, I had a car accident. I was fine, but the car, not so much. And I remember ringing my husband and Jeremy's like, are you okay? And I'm like, I'm okay, but I think the car's totaled. And he's like, but are you okay? And the car wasn't totaled. It would still drive. And I remember we're both looking at it going, that was suboptimal. Like one side of the car entirely taken out. And we were due to move to Queensland and it was in 3 days. So we didn't have time to get the car repaired. He's like, don't worry, we'll get it repaired when we get up there. Then the day before we're due to leave to Queensland, Jeremy takes out the other side of the car on a roo, swerving to miss a roo. So when we do get to Queensland and they take one look at our car when we take it to the repair place, they're like, what did you do to this? So the suboptimal can also be used for bigger things, like the car was totaled, but we were both okay. And then one more story, like to wrap this up, because, I'm on a suboptimal role now, but seeing the lighter side of it. A few years ago, we were supposed to go back to Tassie, because we don't live there anymore, for Christmas to see our family. And it turned out I needed a surgery and I had to have it on Christmas Eve. And I was like, oh, that's suboptimal because I don't get to go home and see the family. I'm going to be potentially in hospital at Christmas. It was just a day procedure, but things can happen. But then when you separate yourself from the shitness of the situation by saying, hey, that's suboptimal, you can also look for the silver lining. So in Australia, at least, well, with the health insurance I have, you pay an excess to your premium each calendar year. You only pay one excess for a hospital admission. So because I was being admitted on the 24th of December, it was still in the calendar year by 1 week. So I didn't have to pay my access again. So I was like, this is the bright side of this. And it turned out just being a day procedure and everything was fine. But it just takes that moment to separate yourself from the harshness of the situation. I use this all the time when I'm stuck in traffic, when I'm running late. Like, we can sit stuck in traffic, seething, raging, feeling our blood pressure rising, or we can just be like, this is suboptimal. Put on your jams, dance it out in the car. But it's so funny. I live in Sydney. There's often quite a bit of traffic. When I look left and right, when I'm belting it out to Hamilton, and the people on either side of me are looking at me like, what are you doing? But I can sit there, as I said, feeling my blood boiling and damaging my arteries with stress. Or I can be like, this is suboptimal. I'll make the best of, what's otherwise a bad situation. So I hope that what you take away from this is when you catch yourself, whether it be a little thing like being stuck in traffic or exploding a Coke can in your freezer, or a big thing like an unexpected hospital trip or, ruining your car, when you can separate yourself from the situation, you are not a failure. You are not a fuck up. You are not anything like that. This situation has happened. It is suboptimal. It's so much a more refreshing way to go about life. Thank you for listening. As always, if you've got any feedback, send me an email, info@suzannecolberg.com. Wherever you're watching or listening to this, I'd love if you could like, share, leave a review. I have been so humbled, honestly humbled by all the feedback I have received so far. I hope to see you on the next one. Bye for now.